day, everybody. It is Calxiyn here, and today we are talking about RWBY Volume 10 theories, which is very exciting that we can
Pretty wild that we're saying Volume 10 theories,
right?
For a volume that has not been confirmed
Yeah,
yet.
I know, right? Okay, here's
For the hypothetical Volume 10 of RWBY.
I randomly got hit with, like, Mercury Brainrot this morning, which is not a sentence that anyone in the human race has ever said. Like, people like Mercury, but, like, for someone who does not care about Mercury to be hit with Mercury Brainrot is very interesting. And the way that this happened was we were all having an argument on Twitter about whether or not Theodore would host the Vytal Festival, which, yeah, bitch, he totally would. But, like, that aside, people's explanation or their reasoning was, like, Tyrian and Mercury are, like, on the way to Vacuo. There's not going to be any time for a Vytal Festival or time to have the Vacuo ball. But that got me thinking, and maybe that's true. I see the value in having the Vytal Festival because it's supposed to be a symbol of kingdom unity. I also talked about on Twitter how, like, Salem can't just blow up Vacuo, because if the Summer Maiden is in Vacuo and they don't know who it is, Theodore could just be like, yeah, go ahead, blow us up, and then spend another, 20 years trying to figure out who the new maiden is when the maiden powers go to some random child in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that Theodore has some leverage here. People think that they aren't going to get recreational time like they did in Atlas. I disagree. I think that Theodore has enough leverage right now. Still, there's urgency, but, like, even during times of war, people party. People still party. They can have their weapons strapped to their backs and they can party. And it can be, like, training also, like they're fighting each other in the Vytal Festival. And yes, it's a symbol of kingdom unity, but also sneaky little way to do a boot camp for the huntsman, right? That's how Rumpel would probably justify it. Theodore would be all for the sentiment, and Rumpel will be like, okay, well, here's how we can make this actually make sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to actually do as part of the curriculum, to have people fighting each other as a form of training, and everybody just happens to get to watch, right?
And drink.
And drink, and whatever. But how does that play into Mercury? So this is what gave me the brain rot. Somebody saying that, like, Mercury and Tyrian are on their way. How can they relax when Tyrian and Mercury are coming here? And first of all, we don't know what they're doing. Like, we had no indication whatsoever on what the plan was in sending Tyrian and Mercury to Vacuo. They could be trying to negotiate with a tribe, like, kind of like a Raven Part 2 Electric Boogaloo situation. Like, we really have no idea what they're doing there. However, there is an opportunity for something really fucking funny to happen. And here it is, okay? Picture it. Come with me on this journey. Mercury runs into the city of Vacuo and surrenders. His face, no, stay with me. His face is all over the news, right? That's something we see in Volume 5 is the wanted posters. Like, they know vaguely enough, like, that Mercury is with the bad guys. But I think it would be really funny if part of Salem's plan is to still use the fact that Mercury is a teenager, because he was in the Vytal Festival. There was that infiltration situation led by Cinder, obviously, during Volume 1 to 3. And so it got me thinking, what is the most useful way to use Mercury? Because, yeah, like, Tyrian goes around and kills people in Atlas and just in the shadows and stuff. But Mercury still has the benefit of being a aged person, like being a teenager, right? So here's what's going to happen. Mercury is going to pretend to surrender and pretend that he has defected.
So he's not
Hold on. This is where it gets spicy. Mercury runs into Vacuo and pretends to defect, is like, listen, Salem put me in a car with Tyrian, I'm trying to get away, and they throw him in jail. And this is all Salem's plan, is to basically have Mercury be on the inside. I don't even know if they have prison in Vacuo, so they've just, like, they've emptied out a dorm room and they've just put some guards in there. I don't know. They just chained him to the desk, I guess. Like, but whatever. The whole plan is that Salem sends in Mercury to be a mole, to be like, okay, well, you still look like a teenager. It could be possible that people believe that you had a change of heart, and that also maybe you weren't as involved in the fall of Beacon as you seem to have been. Like, you could pin the blame on Cinder, right? That Cinder manipulated you.
That would be hard to do
and you
when
had
you consider
no idea.
he was the one that, like, faked the injury with Yang.
Still, there's still... But here's where things get fun, okay? So they send in Mercury to be like a mole, and then also, I don't know, maybe to assassinate Theodore or something later, because Mercury's an assassin, right? So it's basically like he's going in as a spy, as an assassin, waiting for the opportunity to assassinate someone. That is his job. And, like, we saw that Mercury was, like, uncomfortable with Tyrian, right? But he's not defecting still.
It's not hard to be uncomfortable with Tyrian.
But he's still not defecting of his own free will. He's still following the plan. but in his heart, he kind of wishes he could get the fuck out of here, right?
Yes.
And so now they have the opportunity to do something really fucking funny, and that is for Mercury to see Emerald with the good guys, because Mercury does not know that Emerald is with the good guys at all. So it'd be really funny. Emerald sees Mercury and is like, oh, like you defected. Finally, like, yeah, I'm with them now. Like, I
This
decided
is my girlfriend,
to join.
Coco.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so now Mercury, as a character, is kind of at a crossroads because he wasn't going into this genuinely defecting. But now that he sees that Emerald is on the other side, he may be swayed. And it's like, with us as the audience, we never quite know what Mercury's thinking. We never know if he's going along with Tyrion's plan or if it's actually a double switcheroo and he is now like on Theodore's side but pretending to still be Salem's operative. And I think that's very fascinating. I find that very interesting. And that's the theory, is that that's going to be like Mercury's villain arc in Volume 10. And you don't quite know.
You don't quite know the entire time.
Exactly.
If he's a
and then maybe
agent.
you do see like a flashback of him talking to Theodore and like he did actually switch sides, but like you don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like no one ever quite knows. And I think that that's kind of fun. And it makes sense for Mercury's character because it seems like what they're setting up is for Mercury to be directly confronted with the fact that he doesn't want to work with Tyrion anymore. They found out that Salem is trying to end the world, but he doesn't have an easy out of it. He's hoping, I guess, to reunite with Emerald someday, and then he sees Emerald with the good guys. And that could be very interesting for Mercury doing a swap, because it's like, well, if Emerald's here, is Emerald what Mercury considers to be his family?
Maybe,
right? Because they do seem to have a closer relationship. Their partnership, I feel like, kind of goes beyond just being coworkers.
It's not
like in Volume 2,
it's not
they're
a convenience.
friends.
They seem
Yeah,
to
like they like
hanging
each
out,
other,
you know?
right? And like even like in Volume 5, or is it Volume 6? When does Mercury have the monologue where it's like Cinder never loved you, right?
I think that's
Mercury
Volume-
has like the Watts
Volume
monologue.
5,
Yeah, I don't remember Volume 5 that well.
You should
But like
rewatch.
you can see that Mercury cares about Emerald. And so what if that's the final push and that's sort of the message, is that sometimes the final thing you need is just knowing that your family's always going to have your back. I feel like that could be really fascinating in terms of Mercury's character. And maybe he doesn't even know at first. He doesn't know whether he's gonna, like, is Emerald just being naive and kind of stupid? And then he comes around to just like she did. And I think that's kind of cool. Like, I find that very interesting. And somebody else mentioned, and this is like something I never noticed before, but if Ozpin is collecting the villains, they actually spell out Team Omen, which I think is pretty fucked and like really cool. Like, I think that's pretty fucking cool because you have Oscar, Mercury, Emerald, and then finally Neo if she ever comes back in the show.
Omen.
And I kind of like
pretty
that. Like, that kind of fucks, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's like the bad omen for Salem is the fact that all of the villain children, like all of the teenage villains, have betrayed her. Kind of like that. I think that's cool. I kind of like the idea. And then it's like, because then Mercury will have like such interesting interactions because Emerald doesn't know whether to trust him anymore, and he can't tell Emerald that he's working with Tyrion still if he is really working with Tyrion. And characters in RWBY never really do internal monologues, so this would be something that you wouldn't know.
Yeah,
like you wouldn't
be
really
able
find
to.
out and be able to tell whether or not Mercury is actually had a change
It could be
of
a
heart or
prevalent
not.
mystery throughout the volume. Like, it's
I
an
like
anxiety.
a good mystery. I
'Cause
like
that's
an
what I feel-
anxiety.
That's what I love a good anxiety.
But like RWBY needs that to some extent. Like I feel like that RWBY's sometimes at its best when there is an element of mystery. Like Vernal not really being the maiden.
Yeah.
Like there's just, you can see it now in hindsight that it was always there because her eyes don't glow when she uses the powers.
Yeah.
Very interesting now to have another sort of like mystery that's similar to that. Like who's the true maiden? But it's like, is Mercury really on the side of the good guys, or is it all mind games and political fuckity wuckity? You know?
I would also like that the notion, because it is a tense place. Like, you're basically the last holdout of humanity, or one of the few last holdout of humanity. You're kind of surrounded by enemies. Salem is the most powerful she's ever been, and it just like I love the idea of Volume 10 being like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Where everyone is like tense and confused.
And
and
it's
doesn't know
like,
what to
what
do.
if Emerald didn't really change? What if that was her plan all along, right? Was to infiltrate herself in the group. Right now that Mercury's surrendering, it could even call Emerald into question, which becomes a point of contention. Like Oscar believes, maybe, I don't know. Oscar believes that Emerald has really changed. I just think that Oscar, because, I mean, they haven't had like too many interactions together, but they had the ones that mattered, I guess, for people to theorize that Emerald is kind of serving as, like, Ozpin's new Glinda, like, right hand, right? Like, this is, like, someone that isn't already integrated into the team. And, like, Oscar obviously is still part of Juniper and stuff, but, like, he's always sort of been an outsider in a way because he hasn't been a part of the main four. So now, like, for Emerald and Mercury, it's kind of like, okay, well, these are all the other outsiders. Like, there's something about Oscar that attracts the outcast characters to a certain degree because Oscar in himself is also an outcast character. And so that's also interesting if Oscar, like, truly does believe that Emerald has changed, but it's called into question by people like Yang.
I wonder if a lot of people would buy that entirely.
What do you mean?
Because Team RWBY seems okay with Emerald, because Emerald
they were like, okay, but when you think about it,
but everyone else, you know,
but like
Team
now that
Sun,
Mercury,
Team
because
Coffee.
Mercury's like the fact that Mercury shows up and coincidentally surrenders, though, even if Emerald is actually changed, I can see people being like, well, that's suspicious, right? Like, what if this was the plan all along? They infiltrated as students once. Who's to say they wouldn't infiltrate again? And that's actually, like, in the books. And I know we don't want to rely on the books too much, so they probably explain this in the show. But Theodore, like, studies every single person who is in the tournament, which comes into question how he didn't realize that Cinder and Mercury, Emerald, and Neo were fake.
Maybe
because he tells Team Coffee that he studied everyone. You know, he went on the dark web and pulled out, like, I don't know, like everything
They must
on
have
each
had
person.
like pretty solid fake.
Probably, and they probably did.
You know?
But can you see that as a point of paranoia for Theodore?
Yeah.
You're letting the two people that infiltrated your school into my building. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can see Theodore being like, are you guys fucking stupid? It's in Theodore's nature to be sort of fun and blunt
So it'd
and
be interesting if he
sentimental.
becomes-
But what if he's also like, what the fuck are you guys thinking, right?
I like
Because he's
that.
also blunt in that direction as well, where he's like, are you guys fucking stupid? Like, he's like Gordon Ramsay, right? Gordon Ramsay is like great with children, but on the other side, like, Gordon Ramsay will
Brutal
be like,
to adults.
brutal, like, it's raw, you fucking donkey, it's raw, right? And so that's how Theodore is. I think a little bit, I don't know.
I really hope that the first fuck is delivered by
Theodore, and I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I think that would be fun. And so that's why I'm like, this construction makes a lot of sense to me. I know that we haven't gotten a lot of
Believable.
information on Volume 10 or anything at all, really, but it's believable because it calls into question Emerald's loyalty, or where her loyalties lie. Just like some people have theorized there will be a point where Emerald has to choose between Cinder and Team RWBY, right? And then it also gives Mercury kind of, I don't want to say much needed, but like, yeah, man, like, much needed character development. Like, he's gotten, like, give us nothing, Rooster Teeth. Like, you know what I mean? Like, on Mercury-wise, he's always been, I don't know, I always think that Mercury's kind of a fun character because he's an asshole and he's sort of like,
He's an asshole?
struggled and he's gone through shit and he's, you know, so determined to, like,
He's an
step on
asshole,
everyone
but
else
he's
to get to
not
the top,
evil?
but he's also not evil.
Yeah.
And so I think that's always interesting. And since he does
he's
care about
ultimately out
Emerald,
for himself.
he's kind of like in a morally complex
Yeah.
situation.
I wouldn't overstate his connection.
Oh
with
no,
Emerald.
like I wouldn't. But like I don't think it's romantic, to be clear. I think it's a lot more
I'm
of
just
a,
saying, like,
a
I don't think
found
they're like,
family
yeah,
thing.
or it has the possibility, but like,
I think that they are, but he doesn't realize it.
Maybe
That's
that
how
could
I
be
sort
it,
of see
yeah.
it. Is that he cares about Emerald a lot, but he won't know it until it comes right down to it. So yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys had fun. Hopefully Volume 10 gets greenlit, or else this is gonna be kind of a little awkward.
It's a little sad,
little
really.
sad, little awkward. But yeah, that was the brain rot I had this morning based off of the Theodore Festival thing. It's like, oh, but like, how can they when there's the impending threat of Mercury and Tyrian? But what if the impending threat of Mercury is coming from inside the house? Then that would be interesting, right? And so yeah, I think that this is fun.
Indeed.
And we will see you guys in the next one.